Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching in the world. Sean Driver of the Red Horde, and we're back. Another season, championship, first time in 43 years, and with all of that, the Who Are You series. The genesis of this whole series, multiple years ago, don't know the teams that you're playing against, trying to get some identity, get into the knowledge base, figure out the gaffer, the players, all those sorts of things. A little bit different this year, because we all know who these guys are. We're playing with the big boys in the championship, but the question still is... Southampton, the Saints, you're up. Let's look into it. Welcome as we follow along, and let's get into it. Lots of changes to the Who Are You series. If you're familiar, you've been here with the past two seasons of these things. Feel free to let me know if you like the changes, don't like the changes, want something different. If you're new here, let me know your thoughts, what can be added, all that sort of stuff. Subscribe button down below and join for the watch along. We'll be here to watch that as well. Jumping right into this one. So Southampton FC, known as the Saints, it all goes back to St. Mary's, a focal point of the community down in Southampton. You've got, 634 was when the first iteration of St. Mary's Church, but ultimately, 1885, St. Mary's Church of England Young Men's Association. Whew, mouthful. They end up cropping that up. This is at a time when, recall, work organizations, community groups, schools, everybody's creating a football club. So the churchgoers, the men, they create the Saints. 1885, they start to develop. They play in a bunch of different competitions, but ultimately 1921, you go through the first division had been created, second division. This was 1921, the impetus, the third division, and that's when Southampton ends up joining at that point in time, and the nickname just sort of sticks with them as far as being the Saints. Just to give you some tidbits, that is an image of the newest iteration of the church, Southampton Blitz during the war. It ends up getting battered about and knocked about, so I think other than the spire, which was in 1912, 1913 when that one was created. The rest of the stuff, as I'm not reading this time, I've actually memorized some of this stuff. Another fun fact related to Southampton is their connection with being a port city. You look at their sponsor, it is a cruise line that cruises through the Mediterranean, but also when it comes down to the Titanic, a sad moment in Southampton's history. Obviously leaving the port from there, but more importantly, the connection to Southampton is because of it being a port city and the Titanic leaving from there. They had a lot of family members, mostly men, breadwinners, on the cruise for the purposes of work. And of the 700 plus crew members that were there, 594 passed away in the sinking of the Titanic. Where is it located? Obviously down south. We'll bring that map up here. It is a 4-hour, 10-minute drive, obviously, for the players. They're flying it, so don't have to worry about the charter bus, as it were, getting them down there, hitting the big time. Rob and Ryan taking care of the lads for a longer trip. But kudos to those of you who are making the long haul down to Southampton for this one. At St. Mary's Church, you've got the port town and its connection. You've got its connection through to the war. Obviously, a strategic naval base. It was an embarkation point. It was where supplies were left from, all the way along the south coast, but certainly in Southampton, and a focal point. So if you go there, you tour old docks, museums, all that sort of stuff, going back to the 14th century. Lots of walls as well, medieval walls, the oldest ones around from the 14th century. So it is developed from just being a port town, industrial by nature, into being that historic but vibrant culture that you end up seeing. Let's dive into the stadium itself then, and for this one we'll get rid of my ugly mug and show you a flyover. The old grounds for St. Mary's Stadium, called the Dell. This is 24 years old now, St. Mary's is. Prior to that, the Dell, long storied history. This one's sort of the cookie cutter stuff. It reminds me of the Doncaster, Keepmoat Stadium in Doncaster that I'm far familiar with. It's maybe about half the size, this one. The modern version, built in 2001. Capacity of 32,384, but same red seats, very similar framework, sort of cavernous. I don't like this cookie cutter design. It seems dry. Would be the word for it, and I think with the half roof filled over the whole thing with no unique features, it just sort of pulls the culture and the life out of the football at least. So let's just talk about Southampton briefly, and I don't think I have to spend much time on it because I believe, although I've got a video coming up to talk about it, everybody understands what parachute payments are. For those that don't, for teams that are promoted into the Premier League, they are guaranteed to get 3 years of funds from the Premier League if they're relegated. 3 years guaranteed, unless they're obviously promoted back in, then they no longer get the parachute payments. But the idea of that contribution from the Premier League is to say to those clubs, okay, you're in the Premier League, you're going to sign 2, 3, 4-year contracts. Feel free and have the liberty to spend as you wish, and we're going to cover you if you end up being relegated for a period of time, such that you can have time to adjust your roster, figure out your squad, have those contracts dissipate somewhat before you end up pushing your way back up. Obviously, the teams are looking for a bounce back. As a standard rule, you can end up expecting that you're going to get 2 at least, sometimes 3 of those teams that are relegated bounce right back up, and that's because they're 4 or 5 times the financial capacity with the parachute payments than the rest of the clubs have. Their turnover, interestingly enough, in Southampton, not as significant as one would have expected if you just look at club-generated revenue and you strip back the stipends, the broadcast fees, and all that sort of stuff. Where they're sitting now, 29 million in 23-24, that's what their number was. That's only 6 million above what Wrexham had when we were in League 2. Rumors are that Wrexham's at now 30 million quid as a turnover, and so we're in the ballpark as far as ticket sales, sponsorship funds, kit purchases, those sorts of generators. The difference really is the parachute payment, and because of that, Southampton has a massive, significant benefit, and I'll get into that in a later video just so that people can get the background into that and the new football regulator that's put into place as of, 3 weeks ago now, a month ago now. Anyways, as far as the club history goes, Southampton has had a bit of a roller coaster, but they've always been sort of a steady team near the top of the equation. You bring in the chart that covers my ugly mug there, and this one is really where they bounce around up and down, and you can see that 1921 they start out in the third division. Well, you can't see that on this screen. I assure you they started in the third division, but immediately climb up. They sit in the second division. They stay there through the war. They dip down for a bit, and then really it's a long extended run basically from the late 60s to the early 2000s where they live in the Premier League. They get a blip back down, they bounce back up, and they're up there again. Just recently having this yo-yo effect in the last couple of years. Tough game, football in the Premier League, and let's not bash about. They were horrible last year. Didn't score a lot of goals. I think their leading scorer, yes, I know their leading scorer only had 4 goals. He also not with the club any further. But they struggled to score. 2 wins, 6 goals, 30 losses. 2 wins, 6 ties, and 30 losses in the Premier League. That just gave them 1 point more than Derby County in 2007-2008, who had a record of 1 win, 8 draws, and 29 losses. 26 goals for. And so when you talk to or you listen to, and I shouldn't say talk to, I'm not talking to him, but if you listen to the other podcasts, Rob Ryan Red, Fearless in Devotion, who talk to the Southampton fans, and they end up saying they're sort of down because they haven't seen goals in such a long time that they just expect low-scoring games and they're waiting for everybody to turn themselves around. They are more negative about the club than I think anybody else is, because I have Southampton as second on my list for anybody who cares, and in the automatic playoffs or automatic spots going back up for promotion. I just think they're too strong, but they have questions, and they're going to be somebody who ends up having to build onto it. We'll get into that. They have had cup success. The Saints' proudest moment, 1976. They defeated Manchester United in a thrilling final. I'm going to put the link. You can get that on YouTube, so I'll put some of that down there. And Wrexham has a connection with Southampton. 1974, that was the year that Wrexham made a run into the final 8, and there's a nice BBC documentary about that, and I'll put that down below, so if you haven't watched it, that's where you get that famous everybody's talking Wrexham link from. So they faced them in the third round and bounced them out of the FA Cup in 1974, just 2 years prior to Southampton going on their run. The rivalries, it's obvious, it's Portsmouth. Just to the east of them, another port town. It just makes sense. You can say that they've got rivalries, I guess, with Brighton, Hove Albion, sort of some kind of close in the neighborhood, I guess. Bournemouth down there might have a little bit more spice, but really that's it. The gaffer, Will Still, Belgian-born Englishman, coached in Belgium and in France. He was brought on to replace a Russell Martin and has a very different style. Russell Martin, possession-based, love to keep the ball and build from there. The other team can't score if they don't touch it. And so defense first and push it forward. Will Still, rumors are that he likes the press. Southampton fans have been saying they haven't seen much of that as of yet, so they might be building into that. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, described by French football critic Julien Laurent as one of the biggest and brightest young managers in Europe. So the other thing that you hear about him, the exact opposite of Parky. We know we're getting a 3-5-2. 5-3-2? It's the same thing. 2 on the wing, 3 in the back, and 3 midfielders with the 2 up front. Call it what you want. Apparently Will loves to change his formation and does so based on who he's playing. Look, let's see what we can get into. The kit, as it were. It's always been a red and white stripe. There it is. The kit's dry. I love the red and white. I love the consistency of always having a home kit that goes back in history. This kit, unique for another reason, is that back in the day, there was a Spanish connection to them, and it's Atletico and one other, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Put it down in the comments if you remember it. I might have it in my notes somewhere. But anyway, they were in Southampton, and they bought a bunch of red and white jerseys, took it back, and that's why those Spanish clubs have the red and white stripes, is because the history was they just borrowed it from Southampton, and it stuck. The blue and yellow, it looks cartoony. Not the greatest kits. Puma just has sort of been off in the last couple of years, but whatever. Their kit, lame. The players, and let's talk about this for a second. The question is going to be, who is going to score for these guys? Last year, their leading scorer had 4. He's gone. They're probably anticipating that their midfielder and top player last year, Mateus Fernandes, rumor is that he's leaving. It'll be interesting to see if he shows up into the roster. And I say that because rumors are he's got 12, 13 teams that are interested in them, including Juventus, a whole bunch of Prem teams. He wants to go back over closer to Europe. He's still under contract and able to play, and I'm hoping he's left off of the roster card because he's solid. We'll get through that. Let me just bring up the players. Ross Stewart may be called on to score. Hasn't had a good start, but he was brought in 8 million quid plus 4 rumored 8 million quid, and with 4 million in potential add-ons. But he has had injury after injury after injury. He's missed 58 games. He's got just 1 goal in the last 2 years. All the moxie, all the pedigree, never had an opportunity because of injuries to step up, and I suspect that they're going to be looking at him to potentially be an answer. The other answer, potentially, Damian Downs, and this one's unique, obviously U.S. national. You can see the logo there. He's had 5 games, hasn't scored for the Americans other than a penalty goal against Costa Rica. That was in the Gold Cup that just happened recently here. German-born American, he grew up, he was German-born, moved over to Texas, played gridiron football until he was 9 and went back to Germany, and then swapped over to football and got into it there. He signed a 4-year deal with Köln. He scored 2 goals in 10 games in the Bundesliga, went down to Bundesliga 2, scored 10 goals in 29, and now he's moved over. Maybe he's going to be looked at to be the answer, but there's a lot of questions up front. It is a place where they've got some holes right now. Where they don't have holes, I'm going to say, even though they've had a lot of people move on, is in their back line. Now, they've lost Jan Bednarek. He, Polish descent, wore the armband from December through to March, 30 starts. Then he ended up moving on. Then you have the Walker Peters saga. He led the team in minutes, and he's jumped off to West Ham on a free, so he's gone. But they've got 3 real good young stalwarts who have all the pedigree, and if you watch the highlights for whatever you get, eye test, Harvard Bellis, Ronnie Edwards, Nathan Wood, 23, 22, 23, they should be solid. And then you've got veterans like Sugawara, you've got Taylor, you've got Manning, all back there to provide guidance. And the big question is, obviously, I brought up Mateus Fernandes. There's a look at him and whether he's 21, magic in the midfield, talented throughout, 13 clubs, like I said, their player of the year last year. We'll see what ends up happening with him. Goalkeeping is an area of concern for Southampton. They had Aaron Ramsdale. He was their starting goalkeeper. He's off to Newcastle United. You had Joe Lumley. He was their third goalkeeper. He was off to Bristol City. So are you relying on a 35-year-old Alex McCarthy? I don't know if he's the answer. They expect it's going to be this guy, Irish Gavin Bazunu, 23 years old, was on loan last year from Southampton to Belgium. Here's the question with him, and you bring up the football reference stats with respect to him, and it's not awe-inspiring. Last year, he only played 6 games in the Belgium league. His save percentage, 52. By reference, and we recall this last year, 80% is into God territory. 70 to 80%, you're in good, solid numbers, especially above 75%. That's going to put you typically top third sort of thing. You start to get below 70, and there's questions to be asked. He was at 52% with his 6 starts in Belgium. You go back to 2 years prior to that when he was playing in the championship for Southampton, and quite significantly, 41 matches played, 41 starts, 63.6%. Not good there. You go the year before when he was in the Prem, big ask of course, but 32 matches played there, 54.2% save percentage. Look, still young, so he hasn't had a lot of games potentially. 152 of them professionally. I guess it includes Premier League 2, but 152 games. And overall, his save percentage, 63.7%. Could be just quality of the people that he's facing. He hasn't been sheltered like others may have been. But that's a question mark. It's not as good as they had it last year. Just briefly, let's talk about the lineup that I think we're going to get and the one that I want to get. And you know what? Let's start with what I want first, and we'll bring this up here. Ogonko is going to be in the net. I know that people have been talking about Danny Ward being there as a replacement, and if he ends up replacing, that means things went bad for Ogonko. I get it. Ogonko loves to kick the ball out and not the most confident in going out and getting ball, maybe not the best communicator, but he's a shot stopper. And at the end of the day, we're going to get shots. So we need the best that we've got to defend from that, and that's him. There's going to be some moments. We'll take them. The back line there's no question there, I don't think. A lot of people said maybe Cody's not going to slip in yet. I think he's too solid, too much pedigree, too much respect from Parky that he'll draw in there. So it's going to be Brunt, Cody, and Cleworth in the back line. Left wing back, not so sold on Kakache. I think that's what I want over McLean. Has the pace. He didn't show it in the first half. I was a little bit critical in their last preseason match against Groningen, but I think that's what I want over McLean. But that one's a little bit tighter. Longman, no question asked. That's on the right wing back side. Also no question in the midfield with O'Brien. Then we get into some questions. James, I think, is the answer that you want in the midfield. A lot of people have been saying Dobson, preferring the defense over the transition. I think in a game against Southampton, you're going to want to be able to connect your back line to your forwards, and there's nobody who passes through the midfield better than Matty James. And so even though he's getting up there in years, even though he's not as fleet of foot, even though he's not as strong defensively as Dobson, you take that risk and you put him there to be able to connect everybody going forward. So I think he's going to be there. And I want Windus to fall back into the spot in the midfield as a supporting role for our top guys, Kiefer Moore and Hardy. Sam Smith reportedly has a knock. Rodriguez is probably 5th on the depth chart. And so you've got Windus, Moore, Hardy all available to sit in the top 2. I can't figure out who should necessarily go there. I think that Moore fits the club by all accounts. You watch the highlights, you see who he is. He's a collector. He's a vacuum. He pulls ball in. He's going to be able to find stuff in the box. And so he's there. Hardy's going to be there in support. But I like Windus for his creativity. And if you're going to have that, I'd rather have him pull back into the midfield position to find that. Again, I'm obviously going offense all the way here. There's not. We're going to leave Brunt, Cody, Cleworth, and Ogonko high and dry. So this is what I want. I like the idea, the excitement, the thrill, the push forward. But what do I think we're going to get? Parky likes his traditional players, and he's got connections, and so this is what I think we're going to get. I think you're going to get Windus and Hardy up front. I think that Moore's going to take a week off before he gets really going, get us acclimated, get associated. Parky likes to build up to things rather than just throw people in to league games. So I think we'll see him for the whole City match, and then probably if he performs well from there on out. In the midfield, O'Brien has to go in just because he has to go in. I think you're going to get McLean over Kakache for the first one. We'll see how it goes. Again, no question, Brunt, Cody, Cleworth to me, and Longman on the right-hand side with Ogonko. So that's what I think. Lots of people talking about formation changes. Not going to happen. Parky doesn't change his formation. He's already called it multiple times. Dynamic enough to be adjusted for any personnel that we have. So it's going to be 5-3-2. Whether the wingbacks end up pushing forward or pulling back, or they end up moving more up through the midfield, it'll just rotate based on his circumstances. And it is what it is. I want to talk about the referee James Bell for a couple of reasons. First off, Southampton, Wrexham, no points to talk about. But James Bell, he's had a promotion through the ranks very similar to Wrexham. The last time we had him, December 3rd, 2019, Eastleigh. Interesting enough, 15 minutes away from Southampton, also one of the clubs that Southampton played in, and the only team they got a win against, National League outfit, Eastleigh FC. We played them December 3, 2019, 2-0, 2-0 win for us. His debut into the EFL the following season, September 12, 2020, and he's just climbed the ranks since then. He's gone from sitting there in League 2 up to League 1, and now he's in the Championship last season. He had 24 games. That was 7th most. 2.63 goals a game. And what do you pull from the stats? These numbers that are all here based on his stats from last year. What do you see just as a comparative? You go down the line. And for James Bell, and this goes from last year, 48 referees in the Championship that had at least one game. He had 24 of them, as I said. As far as where he's at fouls, they had 22.17 was the average. He's tied 30th for that, bang on average, as it goes to fouls. On yellow cards and on red cards, he's a little slightly more card happy. Red cards in 17% of his matches, 4 total out of the 24 games. As to yellow cards, 4 is his 4.04, I guess, as just slightly over the league average. But the good news, I guess, as far as he doesn't like to give out the pens. 16% of games in the Championship last year had had penalties given in them. He only had red cards in 8% of them, so that put him near the bottom of the table. So that's who we've got, James Bell. Just briefly, let's talk about culture, momentum, and that sort of thing, and what we're ramping up to. Southampton played Eastleigh. They beat them 2-1. They played Castellón in Spain and also Espanyol. Castellón in the second division, Espanyol in the middle of La Liga. They drew against Castellón. They lost to Espanyol, and then they had a game back at home against Brighton that they drew 2-2. Lots of Southampton fans, when you listen to the broadcasts and the preview videos, tentative, nervous. You have a season where you only win twice and they don't score a lot of goals. You'd have questions up front, and they're a little bit concerned. It's freaking Southampton. Like, you've got the ponies and the money and the talent that's there. The positive for Wrexham, chomping at the bit to get this one going. And you know the players have to be, new or old, right? This is new outfit, new season, lots of optimism, culture all there. I anticipate Wrexham's going to get shot out of a cannon. And I think going to be overwhelming to start. And it's going to look good, and we're going to get so high on ourselves. I'm hoping for an early goal. I don't think we're going to get it. And then Southampton's going to take over the game. What do I think is going to end up happening? It'll be a 1-1. I think the teams are too scrappy. I think both teams have struggled in the preseason. I don't think either team is optimal, and question marks abound. So it's going to be a scrappy one. And I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure that comes later on in the game, and we'll see how it ends up going. So I've got 1-1. I know that I'm in the minority there. I think most people have Southampton putting this one to bed. Look, we're here for the watch along. If you haven't been here, I'm going to be doing these more often. Let me know if you're okay with me just rambling and putting pictures up rather than the graphics, because man, they take a long time. I'm just excited. Let's fire this season up. I got to go buy some kit yet. It's been a crazy off season. I apologize for being away for those of you, but I enjoyed the time with the family over the summer. And upwards, onwards, and we'll see you early West Coast time in North America for this one. 4 a.m. start, 7 a.m. on the East Coast, noon over in the UK. Have a good one. Enjoy the next couple of days, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.